there, friends, and thanks for joining me. Well, female friends anyway, this is definitely a video where if there are any fellas who maybe accidentally clicked on it, now is the time to go ahead and quietly back out, because this is definitely a women video. It's going to be, mainly geared toward us, and so yeah, we would definitely like to ask really quickly that there be just a female audience on this one. If you have, if there's some information that you were hoping to gain from this, go ahead and tell your wife, your girlfriend, or whoever else it was that you were hoping to learn the information for to go ahead and watch it, because there's a chance that there could be some TMI in here, because basically this whole topic is probably just TMI anyway. So anyway, with that said, moving on, because now there's only women here, let's go ahead and talk about the topic. So there are a lot of reasons why to switch from disposables to reusables. The first one would be health. There are a lot of chemicals that go into disposable, feminine hygiene products, stuff like chlorine, dioxin, glyphosate, because a lot of the, stuff that's in those disposables is cotton, which is commonly sprayed with glyphosate, which is also Roundup. People can have allergic reactions to it. I know I did, or some sensitivity to it at the very least. Some of the chemicals have been known to be hormone disruptors, and so that's obviously bad for our health. And some people have even said that it could cause stuff like endometriosis or, yeast infections and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of health benefits that come from switching from a disposable to a reusable. And honestly, a lot of women notice that they get less cramps and that they have a lighter flow. So, and a reduced occurrence of having toxic shock syndrome. So yeah, a lot of good reasons to switch for the health reasons alone. The second one would be environmental reasons. It's estimated that, let me see my statistic really quick. So it's estimated that about 7 billion tampons and 12 billion pads were thrown away every year in North America alone. And that was a statistic back from 1998. That was the newest statistic that I was able to find before recording this. Unfortunately, think of how much more it is now, nearly 20 years later. So that is an awful lot of, disposable products that go to our landfills. And not only that, but just the burden on the environment having to create all of those materials with all the plastics and all that cotton and other stuff and all the chemicals they have to spray on that in order to produce them. And then, just to be used once and then to end up filling up our landfill. So there's definitely a good reason to consider with the environmental impacts. And then, of course, my favorite reason is cost, because the average woman has, about 13 periods of year, so 130 of them over a decade. And when you add up the cost of how much those disposable products are, it could be anywhere from the $500 to $600 range for just the products alone. And so definitely switching to from disposables to something that's reusable can definitely help cut down the amount of money that we're spending. Let's talk about the different options that there are available to us. The first one would be cloth pads, and I have actually talked about these on my channel before. I had an old video from a long time ago about how to make cloth pads, but honestly, they're not only easy to make, but they're also really easy to find. And I've made a couple of, changes to the ones that I make. Now I use black on the tops instead of, just any old color. I don't stitch right down the center like I used to. And let's see what else. Oh, I use PUL inside of it instead of linen because it was easier to find and it was cheaper, and it's actually more waterproof. So I found like that was an improvement. But otherwise, I use the same exact pattern that I used to use. And if you know how to use a sewing machine, these are actually pretty easy to use. This is what I had originally switched to from when I was getting off of disposables onto something reusable, and I loved these. These felt like heaven to wear because they are so much more comfortable than the regular ones. Honestly, I believe that it makes sense to switch from whatever you are using to from a disposable to a reusable. So if you're a pad person, it would make sense to just switch to cloth pads. If you are an internal method, something like tampons, it would make sense to switch to another internal method. And this one, there's 3 main types of internal methods. Let's go ahead and talk about the smaller, lesser known ones, and then we'll work up to the biggest, more well-known one. So there are sea sponges. Some people really like these. I was interested in trying them, but they were too expensive to just try. So I never have yet, but Apparently they're really easy to use. You just get them wet and they're really easy to put in. But again, I can't vouch for that because I've never tried them. But that is an option that some people do. Crocheted or homemade tampons that again are similar to the cloth pads, except for that they're tampons. So that's another method. Some people use those. Again, I've never tried those, so I'm not really sure how those work out. And then the last method for internal would be a cup. I know a lot of people probably are a little bit, scared of this, and I will admit that when I first heard about these, I was definitely scared. I was like, ain't no way that ever happening. But then when life happens and you're like, it'd be nice to have something internal, maybe you'd like to go swimming, maybe you would like to wear yoga pants to the gym or something like that, and it just isn't practical to, use something else, sometimes an internal method might be a little bit easier. So the way these work is you fold them up and you put them inside, and they basically catch everything, until it's time to go ahead and take it back out, pour it out, rinse it out if you want, and then reinsert it, and then pretty much that's all you do. So you buy 1 cup, which these can cost anywhere from $5 to $35 or maybe even a little more. And then they're basically reusable almost indefinitely. They recommend that you change them out, after 5 or 8 years. Some people say 10, some people say as little as 3. So I'm not really sure how often they really need switched out, but I do know that these are actually extremely easy to use and not that strange. I was, again, really intimidated when I started looking into this, and so what I did is I went over to another YouTube channel. It was Precious Star Pads, and I just watched a whole bunch of her videos until I watched so many that it was like, all right, cups are normal, instead of being so freaked out at the idea. So that's definitely, if you're, on that path where you're like, I really like tampons, I'm a little bit nervous about the cup, and I'm not really sure if that's something I would want to switch to, or I feel like that's weird, or isn't that, gross. Submerge yourself into the, culture of it, and then see how it makes you feel. Because honestly, I think that once you get an idea of how they work and, basically how nice they are, and how a lot of us, these are like smartphones essentially. None of us thought we really needed them until we got them, and then we thought, how in the world do I live without this? It's one of those things. How in the world did I ever live without this? It's been such an advancement in the feminine hygiene, industry that I am very excited that this was developed. So really quickly, the way these work, because there is a little bit of a learning curve, the first thing you have to do is just become really accustomed to yourself and understanding your body and the way that things work for you. So you have to find out where your cervix is. That's something you do just by checking yourself. A low cervix would be if you can feel it, up to your first knuckle. A medium or whatever cervix is the first one, and then a high cervix is up to here. So find out where your cervix is, because that determines which cup to get, because there are a lot of them out there on the market. There are soft ones, there are hard ones, there are deeper ones, there are some more shallow ones, there are ones with nicer, longer stems, there are ones with no stems. There are a lot to choose from, and it can be overwhelming to find the right one. And so just kind of, going through a quick little quiz with ourselves to find out, how heavy is our flow, where is the height of our cervix, basically our own body's shape, knowing if we have a tilted cervix or not, that sort of thing. Do we want a hard or a soft one, which depends on our sensitivity and our activity level. So if we're really sensitive, we're going to want something that's, softer. However, those probably won't work out for people who are really active, because sometimes our muscles can actually crush it and make it to where it either doesn't pop open or, it leaks. So that's all something to consider. One that I ultimately ended up getting was the Lena cup, and I really love this thing. This thing is so easy to use. I love that it has the bell shape, which has made it really easy to insert and get in the right position. And while there is a little bit of a learning curve, learning how to use it, it's actually pretty simple. So you basically just fold it up, you insert it, and then it pops open, and it creates a little bit of a suction. And that can be one of the things that a lot of people get scared and don't want to use the cup for, because they don't realize that they have to break the suction. So it's inside, you have it suctioned inside, and so you have to kind of break the suction as you're trying to pull it out. And so once you get past that learning curve, how to get it in, how to get it on the cervix, and then breaking the suction as you're pulling it out, it's super routine and easy to use. So again, that small learning curve, but then after that, you bought this and you use it over and over and over. There's nothing to go to the landfill. It's way cheaper than any of the disposables ever were, and it really works out very well. Very comfortable, you can't even feel that it's in. And you can use it for a long time. They say up to 12 hours, so you know, you put it in the morning and then, yeah. There are my reasons why I feel like it is best to switch from disposables to reusables, and if this is something that you've considered but maybe been a little bit scared of, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and try it out. Because again, this was one of the things that I was kind of scared of, and then once I ventured into the territory, I've been really excited about how it's worked out, and I know a lot of other women are really excited about it as well. So definitely give it a shot if you're thinking about it, because I think you're going to find that it totally is. So anyway, hopefully this video was helpful to you ladies. I'm Frugal Green Girl, and we'll see you next time.